Good morning and welcome to the Gospel Loft. We have come to chapter 17 in our series of the book of Revelation. And verse 1 says, "And there came one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sits upon many waters." A whore is somebody who sells herself for misuse. Here we are dealing with a religious whore who misused the gospel and sold it as a counterfeit. And in this way she gave power to Satan to destroy the souls of men. In the harbor taverns, the owners used to employ women of ill repute so they could seduce the patrons to drink more and to rob them of their possessions and money at the end. The whore is our text, or the whore in our text, is described as sitting on many waters, and it is called Babylon. In the antique city, while the king was feasting, a hand appeared on the wall to write God's judgment upon it. In the same night, Babylon fell. Belshazzar, the king, feasted with wine, delicate food, and women. He misused the holy vessels from the temple of Jerusalem and put his unclean lips to the golden cups which were dedicated for temple use only. The beast in Rome did the same thing. They misused the gospel to worship Satan with Babylonian rituals. The pure doctrines of faith were perverted to consolidate their empire. The whole pomp, the banquets, the exquisite wine, the gold and precious stones resemble Babylon so much that we hardly have a doubt about its origin. Before us is a pagan rebirth of the ancient city. Belshazzar was the pontiff of the Babylonian religion, and after his death the priests fled to Pergamon with all their rituals and garments and set themselves up again. And we spoke about this in earlier chapters. The Church of Rome was clearly shown as a woman by Pope Leo XII, when he cast a medallion showing a woman offering a cup to the world with the inscription Sedet super universam. She is presiding over the universe. Have you ever? Verse 2, "With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication." Rome committed fornication and whoredom with the kings of the earth. One of the few examples was the colonialization of South America. The holy conquerors of Rome, under the leadership of the kings of Spain and Portugal, stole tons of gold from the ancient Central and South American cultures, which found its way into the coffers of the Vatican. As a reward, the Pope gave them power over the new colonies. One to Spain, one to Portugal, one to Spain, another one to Portugal, and so on. And the people were made drunk with Rome's superstitions and followed the popes into poverty. Verse 3, "So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. After the Gothic invasions, Europe looked like a desert, and above all, it resembled a spiritual wilderness. The scarlet beast was the 10 kings which grew out of the western part of the Roman Empire, and the woman that was riding it were the popes and the Church of Rome." Julius Caesar, for instance, was elevated to a Pontifex Maximus, which means absolute pontiff or ruler. The same title was given to the Bishop of Rome in the year 379 AD by the Roman ruler Gratian. The bishop appeared as Pope Damasius, with all the garb of the Babylonian cult. For the first time, the devil enjoyed the status as the head of the Roman Church. Verse 4, the woman was arrayed in purple, scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. When a cardinal is elevated to become a pope, he is dressed in the most expensive garments. 5 articles are of scarlet color. His vest is decked with pearls, his crown of finest gold, and garnished with precious stones. The servant of God, on the other hand, is cautioned to be humble in spirit and to wear modest apparel. The same goes for the cathedrals and the churches which have been erected as monuments to testify of the power of Rome. They are filled with precious collections of finest art, altars crafted from gold and silver and ivory. The cup nevertheless was filled with the blasphemies against God and Jesus Christ. Verse 5, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery of Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Dr. Eliot wrote that up to the year 1550 AD, the word mystery appeared on the Pope's crown. Roman Catholicism held its members in the twilight of mysticism. The secret of salvation was only revealed to the priests. This was clearly seen in the theory of the transubstantiation, which was the basis of the Mass. God, on the other hand, kept nothing back from the true believer. He can find salvation without the Church of Rome, without their priest and without the Pope. The mystery is the mark of Babylon. She became the mother of spiritual harlotry, which sets itself up against God. This evil on the earth was born with Cain, when he misused the altar and departed from before the Lord to build a city to himself east of Eden, in the land of Nod. There he replaced true worship with a culture of music, architecture, and sculpture. We find therefore the first time how religion is replaced with culture. One was born of grace and the other of an altar filled with vegetables. The cultic superstition was carried to Babel and Erech under the rule of Nimrod, and from there was taken into all the world after the languages were confused at Babel. Remember that the Catholic only receives the water or the wafer, the vegetable, and not the cup or the blood, which brings them into the fold of the vegetable religion. Verse 6, and I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. John had seen how pagan Rome had persecuted the Christians, and now in his vision he saw how Satan is sitting in the church as the head who commands that millions of believers should be killed. We would also wonder and ask ourselves how something like this could ever happen. Hardly any member of the Roman Catholic Church is aware of their most evil history. Today still they are kept in the dark and discouraged to read the Bible, and when they do, they are indoctrinated through the warped interpretations of the priests. Then we come to verses 7 and 8. And the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The beast, thou sawest, was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they beheld the beast that was and is not and is yet, or yet is. When after a long period of persecution an interval of rest appeared, after the fall of the Roman Empire, the saints thought an end of being hunted down had come. But for the pagans, on the other hand, it was like a miracle when another beast was resurrected out of the iron heap of the fallen empire. The seven-headed Rome flowed into the 10 toes of Nebuchadnezzar's statue and was ruled by a false religious system. The 10 horns received the crowns that were previously on the 7 heads. It is interesting to see how the rebuilding of the beast comes out of the bottomless pit. What we then see is the beast that is. Paul also wrote on the subject in 2 Thessalonians 3 and 4, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple, in the naos, which Paul calls the church of God, showing himself that he is God. In the introduction to the King James Bible of 1611, the Pope is openly accused of being that man of sin. The Reformers had no doubt that the Roman Catholic Church was described in chapter 17 of Revelations. Over 1,000 theologians worked on the King James translation, and all were in agreement when they wrote the introduction. The beast that is to come experiences today a new awakening. The blow that was delivered to the papal powers during the French Revolution seemed to have subsided, and we behold a definite recovery. We wonder what the future holds. We behold an interfaith movement which brings together all 3 frogs under the umbrella. Rome shows tolerance towards all kinds of beliefs, but wants to keep their predominance. When I travel through southern Germany, at every entrance there is a crucifix, testifying of the presence of Rome. When you look into the cars that are parked on the sides of the roads, the rosaries are hanging all over the place on the mirrors, testifying Rome is still in charge. Rome is still there. I had the opportunity to preach to some of the Catholics in the past here in southern Germany. You wouldn't believe how fast they are sitting there, and they cannot get loose from that evil that holds them. They still worship Mary like they did 100 years ago or 200 years ago. They are sitting upon that Roman beast, unmovable. But let's get to verse 9. And here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are the 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Well, the 7 hills of Rome symbolize also the 7-fold rules of pagan Rome. The next verse expands on this thought. Now, verse 10, and there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, the other is not yet come, and when he comes he must continue a short space. The vision leads John back to his own time, when 5 different types of rule have gone by, and the 6th was in existence. These 6 forms were kings, consuls, dictators, decembrists, military tribunals, and military dictators. The latter were ruling in John's time. The next would be the 7th, known as the despotic rulers or emperors, which were known for their absolute cruelty. This short time was the rule of the Emperor Diocletian from 284 to 313 AD. Verse 11, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7 and goes into perdition. The religious beast of Rome is the 8th, but no different from the 7 predecessors, as they are were inspired from the pit. The wolf in the mantle of a lamb was basically changing clothing and will be here until the second coming of Christ. It is interesting to follow the seeds, the one good, the other bad. Cain, Abel, Ishmael, Isaac, Esau, Jacob. Both are from the same family as brothers. Of the picture today is that we have in the Spirit Satan sitting on the throne of the Church of Rome and Christ on the throne in heaven as the head of the believing church. Verse 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings for 1 hour with the beast. The prophet Daniel describes the 10 kings as the toes of Nebuchadnezzar's statue. And here we have the 10 horns pointing to the same concept. Daniel 7, verses 7 and 8. And after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the diverse kingdoms became subject to the popes. We've said in the past, in a short period of time, in 1 hour, mia ora, the kings gave their power back to the pontiffs of the Vatican. The last 3 to receive their kingdom were the Vandals, Ostrogoths, Lombards, and became faithful subjects to the Vatican. You see, we mustn't think that that prophetic fulfillments are sort of staggered and with huge gaps in between. Daniel started it and John completes it. There is no gap of thousands of years between the two. There is one continuous fulfillment of prophecy from the days of Daniel until today and until tomorrow. Verses 13 and 14. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast, and these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. They that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. To be one in mind means that they are all upholding the doctrines of Rome. They give their power to the beast, although they make war with the Lamb. This time around, the Lamb will prevail against the beast. The 1260 years of dominance will come to an end, and the King of Kings will appear to destroy the beast. All the kings took up the sword against the saints for over 1,000 years. But the curtain will be opened for one last time, and the Lamb of God will come down from heaven, and his word will smite all opposition. The world makes it out to be a fairy tale, and it seems too good to be true. The word of prophecy, on the other hand, has never failed. Now verse 15, and he says unto me, the waters that thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. The world and its people are many. And we will see how the waters are going to be subject to great winds and waves, and the masses will be stirred against the Lord. The whore will not be thrown out of the saddle so easily, but will make allegiance and ride the 1 billion men as long as she can. Verse 16, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. You see, the whore is religious Babylon, and it resembles the Pope and Roman Catholicism with the image of the beast. At the beginning of this plague, we had the French Revolution, and after that, the second blow in terms of world communism and the suffering that went with it. But the Russian Orthodox Church also was subject to this plague. The field, nevertheless, is again wide open, and the Vatican has shown a great recovery. But the members of the Catholic Church have become weary of their doctrines and failed to follow its lead. The Pope, on the other hand, has increased his popularity as the world is looking for leadership. Some are looking to the Pope, some are looking to the Dalai Lama, and they're looking always for someone to help them out. The churches in Europe are becoming more and more empty. Many resign as members, be this among liberal Protestants or staunch Catholics. The only church growth we see is among the pure evangelicals, and the charismatic movements. And then verse 17, and for God has put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom to the beast until the words of God be fulfilled. The judgment against religious Babylon has been pronounced, and God will use any method to repay her for her evil deeds. With the beast and with the false prophet, the Lord will wait to the very last moment. The followers have already been judged to a certain extent. And when we look at the 10 kingdoms that ruled during the Dark Ages, we see the same people taking a dive in every respect. Fear already reigns in many quarters. When we look at the politicians, we see them kissing the ring of the Pope. They might know that it is wrong, but have no choice, as in the final analysis, God has put it into their hearts to be subjected. Yes, even American presidents go and visit the Pope and dress all in black. And the women look as if they were going to a funeral when they go and visit the Pope. And they all bend and curtsy and kiss his hand and his ring on his finger. Fear grips their hearts. Then we come to verse 18. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Babylon reigns over the kings, over the boardrooms of multinational companies, over politicians and merchants alike. It reigns over the religions of the world, and God has had enough. It is interesting to see how politics and finance will be the next downfall of Babylon. Yes, ecclesiastically, it's the first lot that will go. And before the next third will be tackled against the great city, the prince of this world will have to be pushed out of the picture, not only as a religious leader, but also as an economic power. Chapter 18 will deal precisely with this theme. We will see that the system that we enjoy at the moment and worship with everything that is within us, economically, it will not last forever. Until this far, God bless you. Amen.